Power often begins not with what you say, but with what you notice. The one who sees clearly, and stays quiet, usually holds the real advantage. The moment you enter a room, people begin analyzing you. They glance at your expression, pick up on your tone, and make assumptions based on your silence. Most do this without realizing it, driven by fear, desire, or insecurity. But Machiavelli did it intentionally, with precision, almost like surgery. He believed power didn't just come from action or speech, but from how quickly you could understand others. To manipulate someone, you first need to understand them. To protect yourself, you have to anticipate them. And to truly dominate, you must read them before they know they're being observed. Machiavelli knew that the promise given was a necessity of the past, the word broken is a necessity of the present. He never took surface appearances at face value. A smile might be a performance. A handshake could be a warning. Even a compliment might be a test. That's why he developed strategies, not guesses. 12 psychological tactics meant to instantly uncover someone's character, motives, and hidden weaknesses. The first tactic is to silence them. Observe how their mask begins to slip. Insecurity thrives on noise. Most people don't talk because they enjoy it, they talk because silence makes them feel exposed. If you want to read someone quickly, say less than they do. Stay quiet. Let your pauses stretch. Make your silence heavier than their words. Within seconds, they'll start revealing more than they mean to, trying to impress you, admitting hidden fears, exposing their motives. Silence isn't emptiness, it's pressure. And under pressure, people say what they never intended to. The second tactic is to watch how they treat the invisible. Forget how they treat you, that's easy to fake. Focus on how they behave towards someone they believe doesn't matter, the waiter, the assistant, the person with no status. Machiavelli taught that power quietly corrupts weak minds. And when people think no one important is watching, their real nature surfaces. How they treat the powerless tells you how they'll treat you the moment your value drops. Respect shown to those without influence is a far more honest reflection of character than politeness shown to peers, because there's nothing to gain by faking it. The third tactic is to offer them nothing and see what they do. This is one of Machiavelli's harshest methods. Give them no validation, no emotional reward, no benefit, just your presence, calm, detached, unreadable. Why? Because people treat you based on what they think they can get. When you offer them nothing, their automatic behaviors show up. Do they get colder? That warmth was never real, it was transactional. Do they try harder? They're approval-seeking. Do they stay steady? They might have emotional discipline, and that makes them worth watching. The less you give, the more they show. The fourth tactic is to interrupt their control pattern. Some people rely on carefully rehearsed ways of speaking. They've practiced how to be charming, how to seem open, even how to look sincere, all to shape how others see them. Machiavelli understood that this type of person is the hardest to read, unless you disrupt their rhythm. Ask an unexpected question. Let their joke land in silence. Respond to praise with skepticism. Change the subject when they think they're building momentum. The moment their act is interrupted, they stumble. And in that stumble, you glimpse who they really are. The fifth tactic is to test their loyalty with small losses. Don't wait to be betrayed to find out where someone stands, create a low-risk test. Say no to something minor. Refuse a small favor they expected. Pull back your attention just a little. Then watch what happens. Do they stay respectful? Or do they start to complain, pull away, or talk behind your back? Machiavellian minds understand, it is double pleasure to deceive the deceiver. True loyalty isn't proven by how someone acts when things are going well, it's shown in how they react when they feel ignored or denied. Even the smallest no can reveal the biggest truth. The sixth tactic is to measure their focus, not their words. Words can be misleading, but focus never lies. While they speak, watch where their attention goes. Do their eyes keep drifting toward influential people? That reveals a hunger for status. Do they completely disregard those with no power? They only respect what benefits them. Do they glance at their phone while talking to you? You're not a priority, just a placeholder. Do they mirror your expressions? They're trying to win favor. Machiavelli didn't listen for meaning in speech, he watched where attention was placed. Because attention is a form of investment, and where someone invests it reveals what and who they truly value, as well as what they silently dismiss. The seventh tactic is to mention a weakness you invented. Share something small and false about yourself, a flaw that sounds believable. Say something like, "I tend to overthink things," or "I used to trust people too easily," or "I'm not great with confrontation." Then pay attention to what they do with it. Do they use it against you later? Make jokes or twist your words? That's a red flag, they're opportunists. If they ignore it, they're either respectful or cautious. But if they open up with a real vulnerability of their own, they're likely seeking connection and feel safe with you. This tactic lets you see their authentic response to weakness, without actually exposing anything real. The eighth tactic is to trigger envy and watch the face flicker. Mention something that subtly puts you ahead, a recent success, an opportunity you received, or praise from someone important. Then look closely at their face. Does their smile seem forced? Do they suddenly change the topic? Do they try to downplay what you just said? That's envy. And envy, in Machiavelli's view, is the most dangerous emotion, because it always comes before betrayal. Men rise from one ambition to another. First, they seek to secure themselves against attack, and then they attack others. Envy doesn't announce itself, it flickers. And once you spot it, you'll never unsee it. The ninth tactic is to ask what they hate. Don't ask about what they love, that's easy to fake. Instead, ask, what kind of people annoy you, or what traits do you dislike most in others? Their answers will likely say more about them than anyone else. The traits people claim to despise often reflect parts of themselves they've disowned or buried. Someone who says they can't stand arrogance may be quietly arrogant themselves. Someone who talks about hating dishonesty might be a skilled liar. And someone who's repulsed by weakness is probably terrified of appearing weak. Judgment, in this case, is often confession in disguise. The 10th tactic is to look at what makes them break eye contact. Eye contact is power, but breaking it often signals discomfort or exposure. Mention subjects like money, shame, status, past failures, or manipulation, and watch their gaze. Do their eyes shift, twitch, or drop when you touch a nerve? That's where the truth lives. Machiavelli understood that eyes don't just reflect the soul, they show where it wants to escape. What causes someone's gaze to falter reveals what their mind is most afraid to face. Tactics 11 and 12 are the most revealing of all, the ones Machiavelli himself used to protect thrones, navigate betrayal, and control the minds of those around him. When you apply them, you go beyond reading people, you begin to shape how they perceive you. These final tactics aren't about observing others, they're about influencing their view of you in a way that draws out their truth. Because while weaker minds chase answers by trying to read others, Machiavelli made the answers reveal themselves. It is not titles that honor men, but men that honor titles. He didn't rely on trust, he created tension. He didn't ask, he provoked. These final tactics aren't about watching someone, they're about setting the scene in a way that draws their truth out on its own. The 11th tactic is to become the mirror they can't look away from. Most people live behind a mask, playing roles, acting charming, performing. But Machiavelli found that if you subtly reflect someone's tone, posture, or phrasing, not obviously, just enough, you trigger a quiet, deep recognition. They begin to see themselves in you. And what they do next tells you exactly what they're hiding. For example, mirror their relaxed tone. Do they suddenly get intense, like they're trying to reassert control? Mirror their confidence. Do they retreat, unsure how to respond? Mirror their insecurity. Do they shift into superiority or sarcasm? By becoming their reflection, you create a subtle kind of tension. They may not consciously notice, but their instincts will. And that instinctive reaction tells you whether they're being real, guarded, or manipulative. The more dramatically someone shifts when confronted with their own behavior, the more their original behavior was just an act. The 12th tactic is to disarm them with respect before you strike with observation. Most people expect to be judged, so they come prepared, guarded, defensive, filtered. But Machiavelli's brilliance was in doing the unexpected, beginning with respect. He would compliment their intelligence, acknowledge something they'd accomplished, or agree with a point they made even if he didn't fully mean it. Why? Because when someone feels safe, they lower their defenses. And that's when you ask the real question, the one that slips under their guard. For example, you clearly put thought into your decisions. What's the fear that drives that? Or, you seem extremely confident. When did you learn how to fake that so well? Or, you're sharp at reading people. How can you tell when someone's doing the same to you? The initial respect opens the door, but it's the precise, disarming question that strips away the persona. People speak more truthfully when they feel admired. And that's when the real information surfaces. Now that you know how to read people on a psychological level, the next step begins, reading them strategically. Machiavelli didn't study personality traits just to categorize people, he studied them like a strategist studies terrain. Because every flaw, pattern, and blind spot isn't just information, it's an opening. A vulnerability to use. A habit to work around. A weakness to press, or protect yourself from. Once you spot what someone's hiding, you gain more than insight, you gain quiet control. Not to hurt them. Not even to deceive them. But to influence them, silently, and on your terms. If someone fears being left behind, distance becomes your leverage. If they crave praise, a subtle lack of approval keeps them chasing. If they thrive on control, unpredictability throws them off balance. And if they're dangerous, smiling while hiding a knife, you'll know exactly where to apply pressure, or how to let them collapse on their own. This is where psychological reading becomes something sharper, strategic warfare. You start organizing people into mental archetypes, but you never say them out loud. Machiavelli didn't walk around diagnosing people, he watched, understood, and responded without ever naming it. He didn't say he's a narcissist or she's insecure. He labeled in silence, and acted with precision. Why? Because, as he once wrote, people are more likely to be deceived by a man in whom they have blind confidence. Names give people something to push against. But when you guide behavior without giving it a label, there's nothing for them to resist. You slip in unnoticed. Here are some quick strategic archetypes. The masked pleaser, constantly chasing approval, easy to steer with compliments, but dangerous if that approval is withheld. The silent climber, calm, loyal on the surface, but always watching for a power gap. Respect them, but don't let them get too close. The fragile genius, brilliant but emotionally volatile. Their intelligence can be an asset, but only if you know how to manage their instability. The loud defender, the one who justifies everything, overreacts to minor pressure, explains too much. Usually hiding guilt or fear beneath the noise. You don't need to confront them. You don't even need to explain what they are. You just need to handle them, without ever letting them realize they're being handled. Watch how they respond to the word no. There's no clearer test of someone's character than being denied. Machiavelli believed, the measure of a man is what he does with power. But just as telling is what they do when power is taken away. Say no to something small but expected, a favor, a compliment, a little attention. then stand back and observe. If they stay calm after being denied, it's a sign of inner discipline. If they react, even subtly, with emotion or resentment, they're still driven by ego. If their whole demeanor changes and the performance drops, they were never being real to begin with. How someone responds when their will is blocked shows their emotional foundation more clearly than any words ever could. Pay attention to who they're trying to impress. One of Machiavelli's core insights was this: people rarely speak just to express, they speak to position. Every statement, every joke, every opinion is part of a strategy, even if they don't realize it. So ask yourself, who is their performance meant for? If it's you, they're seeking your approval. If it's a group, they're trying to assert dominance. If it's someone who isn't even present, they're exposing a hidden agenda. Watch their eyes. Watch who they glance at when they speak. Approval is the compass of the insecure. And when you figure out who they're trying to impress, you'll know where their loyalty really lies. And it may not be with you. Pay attention to what people are most proud of, then look for what they're trying to cover up. Because often, the louder someone highlights one trait, the more they're hiding the opposite. Someone who insists, "I'm brutally honest," may be skilled at twisting the truth. Someone who says, "I hate drama," is often a magnet for it. Someone who claims, "I always put others first," is frequently building quiet resentment, or using kindness as a tool for control. Machiavelli understood that when someone draws too much attention to a single virtue, it's rarely virtue at all. As he believed, virtue in excess is a vice. Real strength doesn't declare itself. It doesn't need to. So if someone keeps broadcasting a value, look behind it. The shadow behind the performance is often far more revealing. These aren't assumptions, they're instruments. Tools of perception. You're no longer guessing. You're decoding. You're not dealing with chaos, you're reading code, responses, routines, patterns. But perception alone isn't enough. Because once you can read people, you're faced with a choice. Do you give them what they want? Do you mirror their mask? Do you test them, elevate them, or take them apart? Because with understanding comes power. And with power comes danger. The danger of becoming cold, detached, or manipulative. But Machiavelli didn't avoid that danger, he accepted it. He didn't view people as enemies or problems to solve. He saw them as pieces on a board, not to destroy, but to move. And now that you know how to read anyone, your next lesson is this: how to use what you see, and win, without ever being seen as the one in control. Once you've learned to read people with precision, your advantage doesn't lie in simply knowing their secrets. It lies in knowing exactly how to use those secrets, without them ever realizing they've been exposed. This is the turning point, where Machiavellian intelligence evolves from perception into influence. You're no longer just observing. You're guiding. And they're following your lead, without even realizing it. Most people try to influence others with persuasion. With logic. With sincerity. But Machiavelli wasn't concerned with being understood. He was focused on being obeyed, subtly, silently, and consistently. And the first rule of influencing someone who doesn't know they're being influenced: make them believe every decision is theirs. First, mirror their desire, then redirect it. Once you've identified what someone truly wants, whether it's status, admiration, or a sense of safety, you don't challenge it. You reflect it. If they're ambitious, praise their drive. If they're insecure, reassure their effort. If they like control, acknowledge their authority. This makes them feel validated. Understood. And that's when you steer. You attach your agenda to their desire. For example, if they're looking for recognition, suggest they'll earn more by supporting your approach. If they want influence, show them how your plan will increase their visibility. You're not resisting their desire. You're hijacking it. And when they follow your direction, they believe it was their idea all along. Second, use strategic vulnerability to get them talking. People love to talk about themselves, especially when they feel like they're helping you. Machiavelli used this dynamic like a surgeon's blade. He'd reveal a minor, calculated weakness, something believable, but harmless. Something like, "I usually second-guess my gut on first impressions." Or, "I tend to get overly caught up in work sometimes." Or, "I'm not as good at managing people as you are." Why? Because it shifts the emotional balance. Now, they feel superior, which boosts their ego. Helpful, which builds emotional engagement. And trusted, which creates the illusion of closeness. In that space of comfort and control, they open up. Not because they were forced, but because they feel safe, and just a little bit above you. They start revealing the things they normally keep hidden, not because you demanded it, but because they feel comfortable and slightly superior. A mind that feels safe will speak openly. A mind that feels superior will speak honestly. With this dynamic, you've unlocked both. Third, reveal half of a secret to create false equality. People are more likely to trust you when they believe you've trusted them first. That's why Machiavelli would offer a partial truth, something that sounds vulnerable, but is carefully crafted. It feels personal, but it's never risky. For example, "I had to learn the hard way not to rely on people I thought I could trust." Or, "I used to get overlooked until I stopped being so nice." This creates a mirror, but a false one. They think, "You're just like me." And in that moment of perceived similarity, their guard drops. Then they share something real. This is the exchange Machiavelli mastered. You hand them one puzzle piece, and they give you the entire map. Fourth, let them define themselves, and use that definition. One of the most effective manipulations is to never label someone. Let them label themselves. For instance, they might say, "I'm someone who values loyalty above all." Or, "I can't stand when people waste time." Or, "I never let emotions get the best of me." Now you've got their internal script. You know what they want to protect, and how to speak in a way that aligns with their identity. So if you ever need them to go against their instincts, you simply frame it in their own language. For example, "You're someone who really values loyalty, that's why I know I can count on you with this." Or, "Since you hate inefficiency, here's the fastest way to handle it." You're not forcing them. You're reinforcing who they believe they are, while subtly pointing them in the direction you want. And they won't push back, because they think they're staying true to themselves. Fifth, give them a role they'll feel pressured to live up to. People are more driven to avoid losing something they believe is theirs than to chase after something new. That's why assigning someone a flattering identity can lock them into playing by your rules. Machiavelli often gave people reputations they hadn't yet earned. You could say things like, "Everyone sees you as someone who always keeps their word," or, "People admire you because you never get caught up in petty drama," or even, "You're the one who always brings balance when things get tense." Once you've said it publicly, it sticks. If they act in ways that contradict that image, they'll feel the weight of appearing fake or unstable. To avoid that, they stay in character. They hold on to the identity you gave them, not because you asked them to, but because losing it would mean losing face. And just like that, you've influenced their behavior without giving a single instruction. Sixth, drop hints that quietly shape how they see you. Direct influence isn't always necessary. Sometimes, it's more effective to let people overhear just the right piece of information. It might be a casual story where you come out on top, a subtle joke that shows you can't be easily fooled, or a remark that signals your expectations are high. These planted cues feel like accidents, but they're carefully placed. And the magic is this: People adjust their behavior around you based on what they think they discovered themselves. That false sense of insight makes their assumptions feel solid. Once someone feels they've figured you out, they stop questioning you. And when they stop questioning, they become predictable and much easier to steer. 7th, let them think they've won, so they'll protect what you built. One of Machiavelli's most strategic moves was making people believe they were in charge early on. He'd let them think their opinion was chosen, that their leadership was essential, or that their ideas shaped the outcome. These early wins fed their ego while he quietly set things up to serve his own agenda. It wasn't about generosity, it was about setting the trap. Because he understood that people quickly forget favors but never forget when they feel wronged. And he knew better than most that human behavior is driven by two forces, love and fear. Whichever gave him control, that's what he used. People stay committed to what they believe they helped create. They fight to protect what they think was their idea. And they remain loyal when they feel valuable, even if they're being used the entire time. Let them believe they wrote the opening line. You control how the story ends. At this point, you're not just analyzing people, you're shaping the systems around them. You're not reacting to their behavior, you're 2 steps ahead of it. But the most advanced form of Machiavellian perception isn't about others at all. It's about what your ability to read others starts to reveal about you. Every mind that sees too clearly carries a shadow. Because once you can see through everyone, it's easy to start believing you stand above them. You stop feeling. You start playing people like pieces. You begin controlling not out of necessity, but out of habit. And that's the moment the truly dangerous mind must evolve, not just into someone who reads, manipulates, or wins, but someone who knows when it's time to exit the board quietly, and still win. At the highest level, Machiavellian instinct stops feeling like strategy. It becomes automatic. You stop thinking, how do I figure this person out? You just do. You walk into a room, and everything speaks. You see who's insecure, who's performing, who's silently powerful, and who's watching you just as closely as you're watching them. This was just the beginning. If you've made it this far, it means you're not just curious, you're serious. About awareness. About control. About growth. So keep sharpening your edge. Keep studying the patterns. And keep watching, because what comes next will take everything you've learned and show you how to use it.